The five things that you should really be watching out for when you vet partners is character, and we're going to go into depth on this, but the character of the person or the people that you're partnering with, their credit, their history as an investor, the collateral of the deal, obviously make sure it's a deal before you partner with them on it, the capital, and then the last one is capacity. These are your five C's of partnerships, and all of them are super, super crucial to help you protect yourself.
Welcome to Real Estate to Freedom, the podcast that helps you create the active life you've always wanted through passive income investments. Now, here are your hosts, Dr. Nate and Becky Lambert.
Today, I want to teach you some really important skills that don't apply to just the commercial real estate world. They very much apply also to the residential and in many ways into other aspects of your life as well. Today, I want to teach you about vetting partnerships. Okay. Today, we're going to talk about vetting partnerships. I know we've had a lot of people ask questions about this lately on how to know who to partner with and what you should be doing if someone offers a deal to you that they want to partner with you on. What due diligence you should be doing on your end to vet the partners, not just on the deal itself. There's a lot of people who find great deals, but not everybody are people you should be partnering with. So I'm going to teach you some really important skills today on how to vet your partnerships, what you should be looking for, what you should be running from, all of those aspects. I worked in banking for 13 years, and in banking, there's a phrase they talk about the five C's. The five C's in banking are very, very similar to commercial real estate. There's not technically a five C's that I've heard of before, but I think there's five C's that are very, very applicable to commercial real estate. So this is vetting partnerships, according to Becky Lambert. The five things that you should really be watching out for when you vet partners is character, and we're going to go into depth on this, but the character of the person or the people that you're partnering with, their credit, their history as an investor, the collateral of the deal, obviously make sure it's a deal before you partner with them on it, the capital, and then the last one is capacity. These are your five C's of partnerships, and all of them are super, super crucial to help you protect yourself. The first one I want to go into is character. There is a reason I have this as my number one, guys. The person or people you partner with, their character is crucial. Even if you have the best possible deal out there, if you're working with somebody who's not honest, who's not fair, you have no idea. First of all, they're likely to be lying to you about the numbers. And second of all, you have no idea how they're going to treat you because integrity is crucial. So before you partner with somebody on a deal, take the time to get to know them. This is a lot like dating, people. You shouldn't jump into a relationship too quickly. Get to know them, all of the partners, not just one or two. Run background checks on the partners. There's a variety of ways you can do that. Most attorneys can run a background check for you on a person if you want it for that particular purpose, if you're looking to partner with them. There's some apps out there that allow you to do background checks. Some of them are designed for landlords, so you'll have to get permission to use it for that. There's one I love called Forewarn, that's spelled Forewarn. It's designed for realtors. And that particular app allows you to pull an arresting report on anybody using just a phone number. So if you have their phone number and their name, you can look up their arresting report and see if they've been arrested a lot of times or never. It also shows like traffic violations, things of that nature. Be careful with that. There are sometimes situations where something on there may not be accurate, that they were accused of something, but they were not. But I would say that's pretty uncommon. For the most part, if you're looking at someone's arresting report and you see lots of arrests for drug use and driving under the influence and robbery, things like that, there's a good chance this is probably someone you shouldn't be partnering with. Also look at the length of time from them. If they were arrested 25 years ago, but there's been nothing since then that's a character question. You need to take the time to get to know the person and find out, do you feel like they've changed? Have they done enough to show that they have changed as a person? On character, you should be finding out the lengths of their relationships with partners that they're currently investing with. Find out, have they been together as partners on deals, not necessarily in the people they're dating, on the partnership. Have they been together long enough that these people have been through the good times and the bad times together? Just like dating, A lot of people seem really awesome in the beginning. You find out what they're really made of after a few months, years in a partnership with them. That's how you get to know really what they're like. Which takes us to the next part on character is ask their former partners. Don't necessarily ask them for a reference unless you need to, because just like in the job market, when you put down a reference, you're intentionally putting down the people that you know are going to give you the most positive reference. In the real estate world, a lot of times it's people that they know that will lie for them. Sometimes it's people they've never actually partnered with, just somebody that they know will lie. You want to try and find people they have partnered with in the past and then have really open conversations with them without that person or those people present so that they can be honest with you on their experience. Be very honest with them as well. Let them know what you're looking for and what you're trying to find out. Find out how did this person react when things did not go according to plan. You want to be talking to not just former investors that invested with them, former clients on either side of the transaction, hard money lenders that they may have worked with, anything of that nature, people who will have experience working with them that can tell you, yes, this person is honest and true to their word, or, uh, and on that note, guys, if you ask somebody for a reference and they ho hum or don't really give you an answer, that almost always means it's a bad reference. A lot of times people will be hesitant to give you a completely honest answer because of fear of somebody suing them for defamation or slander. So if they ho hum, if they don't give you a glowing reference, just know that it's a bad reference. That's almost always what that means. Um, when you're asking for referrals, again, when you talk to somebody after they give you a reference or they tell you about their experience with this person, ask them, who else do you know that has partnered with this person or has some experience working with them as a hard money lender or as a banker or anything on that capacity? Keep probing until you feel like you've talked to enough people to get a good idea of who this person is like, what this person is like when you partner with. Remember, you're not trying to slander them. You're trying to find out whether or not you want to partner with them. So if you find information, don't go around spreading it to everybody else. This is for your due diligence only. Character is really, really important in all aspects of life, and real estate included. Your honesty and your integrity is huge. Your reputation in the industry, once it's ruined, it's really, really hard to fix it. So be very careful that you also are always being honest with people, that you're telling them about issues right up front as soon as you know about them, so that you can work to solve them together. Be honest and fair with both your clients and with your investors, and be transparent from the very beginning so that they know they can trust you, whether you're raising capital on the deal or you're the investor on the project who has a few partners. Make sure you're being open and honest with your partners. And we talked about the background check. There are ways you can pull a credit check if you really want to see that, try to figure that out. On the background checks, most of them will tell you if they have existing tax liens, things like that, that aren't always a bad thing, but just know what's going on. Know the piece together the picture of who this person is and what they're doing. Um, the last thing I want to say on character, guys, the questions you want to ask for references, people you're asking reference are, ask them, has this person treated you fairly? Ask them if you feel like this person's been honest with you in all things. Ask them, how experienced is this person in this industry? Because they may be really honest and fair, but they're not really experienced. And a lot of people won't voluntarily tell you that unless you ask. So you have to ask the good probing questions. Ask them how hardworking this partner was. Did they pull their end of the deal? Did they jump in to try to help other people? Or did they try to get away with just doing the very minimum they could possibly do? And then ask them, the last question is, would you partner with this person again if the opportunity arose? Because a lot of times you'll get good answers on the rest of them, but when you ask them if they'll partner again, if they say no, probe and find out why. See if they'll be willing to tell you that. With regards to other projects that they've been involved in, you want to ask them on their projects, how did this person react when they had problems in the project? Because every project has problems, guys. In real estate, we do all the analysis we can in advance and we jump into it and we run wholeheartedly, but there are always hiccups along the way. It's just like life. How did they work through these hiccups? Did they turn and blame each other, or did they work together as a team to solve problems? Did they quickly write off their losses and make their investors take a loss? Or did they do everything they could in their power to make it right for their investors or for the lender on the project? Did they take a loss for themselves personally before asking everybody else to do it? Or did they have all their investors or all of their partners take a loss and have them not actually have any loss on the project as well? Was it distributed equally amongst everybody, just to the investors or partners, or only to the person that you are looking to partner with? A pro tip for everybody here, wherever possible, protect your integrity above all else. Be prepared to take a loss yourself long before you ask anybody else to take a loss on a project, especially if it's a project that you were in control of and therefore you had more of the ability to prevent the loss. We know that there are always losses, but be open and honest with your investors or your partner. Say, yep, we're all going to have to take a loss. I'm taking this much along with you, or break that out so that they see that you are being honest, so that they know that they can trust you. The last thing I want to say on character, everybody, this may seem really obvious, but if it's not, this is important for you to know. If there's any signs of integrity or honesty problems with this person, run. I don't care how great the deal is. Do not partner with them. You will regret it. If needed, I can teach somebody the skills of investing. If they have a good deal, but they are not experienced, they don't know how to do this, I can teach them those skills. And we just adjust the ownership percentage accordingly based on their experience level and how much they're going to be able to contribute. I can teach you the skills of real estate investing. What I cannot teach you is moral character and work ethic. If someone's honest, but they just are not hardworking, I can't teach them that either. So those are the two things that I just flat out say no on: moral character and work ethic issues. I will not partner. The next thing I'm going to talk about is C number 2 of real estate investing: credit. When it comes to credit, you want to evaluate the track record of the person that's investing in the deal with you, or that you're partnering with on the project. This is not like your credit score per se. I mean, it wouldn't be bad to have that if you can, but a lot of partners won't really share each other's share credit scores or credit histories with each other. This is their credit in this industry per se. Evaluate their track record. Ask outside sources, like we talked about, their former investors, partners, hard money lenders, and then find out on projects that they have been involved in, what rate of return were the investors expecting and what rate of return was actually delivered. How good are they at anticipating profits up front? And if they underestimated and over delivered, that's a great thing. What you don't want is people who consistently promise 30% rate of returns and deliver 12% or 5%. You want people who are realistic. Um, it's really, really important, guys, that people know that they can trust you and they know that you're going to do the best you can to deliver at least what you promised. So when you are evaluating a deal and inviting people to partner with you, tell them not just show them a base case, which is like the bare minimum, your likely rates of return, and a best case scenario. I always show all three. When I'm pitching the deal to customers, I show them the base case. This is like what we anticipate being the lowest rate of return, and here's why. I always want to outperform what I promise. And that's super, super important to me. But just know, people, that there are things in the market that we cannot anticipate. So every once in a while, you'll have a project that doesn't perform even at the base case scenario. I can tell you there's quite a few people in the last 2 years that have invested in projects all over the country that are not getting even the base case scenario, because in 2021, when people bought these projects, commercial interest rates were like in the 4%, high 4% range. Well, those same loans are now at more of like 6%, 8% rates. Most of them are in the 7 to 8% range. And it has a huge impact on the profitability of the project. So there are situations outside of the control of the partners that are involved in the project. So be patient and understand that, but always do the best you can to under promise and over deliver. You want to find out, was the project delivered on time? If they said it was going to take 18 months to build and it actually took 36 months to build, find out what happened. Were they lying to the investors? Were they just not experienced enough to know how long it was going to take to build or what was going on? Or were there situations that they didn't expect? Like, for example, I had a project, we were building an apartment building, and within the fifth scoop of dirt, no joke, they found out there was a Native American burial ground on the land, or on the land. There was a burial ground there. And so it delayed the project by over 12 months because all the stuff had to be recertified. They had to move all the remains to somewhere else that was sacred. And so that delayed the project. Was that the partner's fault? No, there was no way they would have known that. So things like that that are outside of their outside of their control, don't hold that against them. But other things like, oh, well, I didn't know it would take 36 months to build. Well, you should have known that. If you have any experience in this industry, you should have known how long it's going to take to build, how long it's going to take to get it stabilized. If they're going to remodel the project, how long it's going to take to remodel it, taking into account if you have to move tenants out for the remodel project. So all of those are things that they should be able to anticipate. Were the partners open and honest with each other and with their investors about delays on the projects or diminished rates of return? And was there good communication throughout the project? If you're investing in a project with other people, either as a limited partner or as a general partner, there should be very open communication regularly. Most projects are at least once a quarter. A lot of them are once a month, so that you identify, okay, here's the hiccups we've run into and here's what we're doing to overcome it, so that nothing blindsides you if there's a problem. And so that you have a chance to adjust if things are not working out the way you'd originally expected. The other things on credit is what's their experience in this asset class? So are they creditable enough to be able to manage this project? Do they have a lot of experience in this asset class? How many projects have they completed in this specific asset class? And how many projects have they done in similar asset classes? So if they flipped 25 single family homes and now they want to flip a 2,000 unit apartment building, those are not really related. They're not the same. You need someone with a lot more experience. So that's what you're looking at there. And on the projects they're telling you about, dive in and find out, were they a general partner or were they a limited partner? Because the limited partner, they're putting in money and they make a rate of return, but they're not usually making the decisions on a day-to-day basis. A limited partner is a good start for experience, but you need to know whether you're partnering with someone who has been in the weeds on the day-to-day details and decision making of the project. That's your general partners. And then within that work that they're doing, what was their scope of the work? Have they worked with this contractor before, or is this is their first experience with the contractor? Does the contractor have the experience necessary to build a project of this nature or to remodel a project of this nature? How much due diligence have they done? So we've talked about character, the character of the partners. We've talked about their credit or their experience and their track record in this industry. The last thing I want to talk about on credit, this is where you find out how good they are at financial reporting, or do they understand the importance of it enough to hire someone who's good at it? You need people who have a lot of experience in providing accurate and timely financial statements, because a financial statement is how you manage the property or the business, guys. If you don't know how your property is performing, chances are it's not performing well. Financial reporting is how management should be making day-to-day decisions on the business, whether that's a single family home, a multifamily project, or a huge portfolio. You want to make sure that they have and they are providing to their investors or their partners high quality financial statements that are highly accurate, and they should be provided at least semi-annually. In some industries, you'll want it quarterly or even monthly, but typically in commercial real estate, quarterly or semi-annually is sufficient, especially for like multifamily or retail or office, unless it's short-term offices. But if it's something where there's like a 10-year lease on the property, semi-annually is sufficient because you've got a lease that lasts 8 more years or 12 more months, things like that. So you can anticipate where the rents are likely going to be. Good financials are key because it allows you to track your coverage ratios on an ongoing basis to know whether or not your project is performing. What you don't want to have happen, guys, is you don't want to find out the project didn't work when you're bankrupt. By then it's too late to fix it. You want to know the second it starts trending downward so you can fix it long before you hit the bankruptcy point. The other reason why financial reporting is super important is it allows you to do cash flow projections. If you're going to be short $20,000 4 months from now, wouldn't you rather know about it now than 4 months from now when you're $20,000 short and you have nowhere to pull the money? Cash flow projections are important. It allows you to identify, okay, I've got these expenses coming up. I need to make sure we set aside enough funds to cover that, or I need to find an alternative source for these funds before the funds are due. It allows you to identify negative trends with good financial reporting and make corrections early, like we just talked about. With credit, guys, with the credit of the people, it goes a lot with integrity and character. So these two kind of go hand in hand. I just want to emphasize that projects rarely go completely smooth. They rarely don't have a hiccup. So don't gossip about your partners or smear someone's reputation just because something didn't go well. Unless if they're completely lying to you, I wouldn't gossip about it, but I would make sure if someone asked you that you're honest with them. Don't go super in depth because you don't want, some people are very litigious and you don't want to be stuck with someone like that. But don't lie to somebody else who's looking to partner with them either. Because a lot of things can't be anticipated, try to give your partners the benefit of the doubt and understand that sometimes there's just things that are outside of their control, things that they couldn't have predicted, like interest rate changes or shortages of painters or things like that. Sometimes in constructions, there are delays just because there's a shortage of subcontractors in a particular area. Know the difference between a dishonest operator and a project that just didn't work out the way it was expected to work out and why it didn't work out so that you can identify, is this something my partner should have known or I should have known, or is this just something they couldn't anticipate? Be open and really value honest communication throughout the process. And then if someone asks you for a reference, be honest, but don't slander them, don't defame them, just be honest. If you're not sure how to say it without someone being able to sue you for slander or something like that, I'm not saying they would win, but it still sucks to have to go through it anyway. You can just repeat one answer. This is one I've used a few times with certain people. I would just say, well, I can tell you honestly, I would not partner with that person again. And if I don't dare give more details, I just say, I don't dare give you details, but just know I would not partner with that person again. That's enough that a savvy person will know that what you're saying is don't partner with this person. That's sufficient. And keep it to the actual facts of what happened, not your speculations of what you think they did, because that's where you run into lawsuit problems. With defamation, guys, it's not super common, but just know that if you are being honest and telling the truth, you can't be sued for defamation, or at least it won't hold up in court. By definition, for defamation to win, it has to be a lie that ruined their reputation and had a financial harm to them. So don't lie, don't speculate, just be honest with the facts. Okay, C number 3 in evaluating a partnership. This is the fun one. This is the collateral. See if you've got a deal. This is where you evaluate the debt coverage ratio of the project, the loan to value and or loan to cost of the project, your internal rate of return, your cash on cash returns. You evaluate how long you're likely to have this investment out, which is necessary to compute things like the IRR and the cash on cash return. But this one is crucial. Guys, make sure you have at least 2 exit strategies. This will help protect you from a lot of potential losses. In most recessions that I have seen and that I have studied, losses often happen when people go into a project with only 1 exit strategy instead of 2. Let me give you an example. High-end homes by the beach. We're going to build these high-end homes and then sell them for a profit. Okay. And this is not related to a project we're actually doing. This is one that someone wanted us to do a while ago. We're going to build these homes. We're going to put in $9 million to build them and they're going to sell for 12 million. Okay. And they're on the beach in this nice area that people like to be at. That's awesome. But what's your secondary exit source? Your primary exit strategy is to sell the homes. What happens if it doesn't sell? Can you make enough money on rents from this project to cover a $9 million loan? If the answer is no, you should be very leery before you jump into this project because you're banking entirely on the market exactly as it is. When economies change, when markets change, guess what the first asset class is that's hit? It's usually your high-end homes. Your high-end homes are usually the first ones to take a hit in a recession. Your entry-level homes don't usually take much of a hit at all, if any, because people still need homes. They don't necessarily need a $12 million home, but they do need a home, which is one of the reasons why when I flip houses, I really like to stay kind of in the entry-level homes. I know a lot of other people who do the high end, and there's no problem with that. If you're an experienced investor, I wouldn't start on the high ends if you're a new investor because of the risk of the market changing and you not catching it in time. I also like apartments for that reason. It's your entry level home where people need housing. There is always a demand for housing. There's just not always a high amount of demand for really high end housing per se. So have 2 exit strategies. If your goal is to flip the property or to build it and sell it, make sure you can rent it for enough money to cover the mortgage if needed. In the interim, if there's a change in the economy or things just don't sell quite as well as you'd expected. Some of the exceptions to that, which I'd still say are be leery, but it can work. If you're building like a high-end home, but you already have an end buyer who already has put earnest money down and they've already got pre-qualified with the bank, that takes out a lot of the risk because this person has money on the line. You want to make sure they have enough money on the line to hurt though. If you're building them a $12 million home and they gave you a $10,000 deposit, that's not enough to make it hurt if they walk away. If you're building them a $12 million home and they gave you $1 million deposit, that's enough to hurt if they walk away. Where you want to find that gap in the middle is up to you, but just know the amount of money that they're putting in to limit your risk has to be enough to hurt, or it's not going to change behavior from them walking away from the project. So it has to hurt if they walked away from it. Other exit strategies, long-term rental, short-term rental. Sometimes exit strategies are creative, like you buy a piece of land and you're going to use it for parking for a property that's nearby that has a high demand for parking and there's not enough parking. Or you're going to convert it into storage units or something of that nature. Just make sure you have two exit strategies to help protect yourself and watch the economy. If you're not good at watching the economy, work with people who do, or partner with people who really watch the economy. No one can predict it, but there are signs of recessions before they hit. The fourth C when it comes to partnerships is capital. Show me the money. Very much applies here, guys. How much money is your partner putting in on the deal? So if we're going to build a 200-unit apartment building and we need to put in, I don't know, say $10 million as capital into the project, if they want you to put in 5 million and Bob to put in 5 million and the main partner's putting in nothing, I would be very leery of that because that person has no skin in the game. There's no financial skin in the game. If it doesn't work, they're not out anything. Make sure you know how much money each partner is putting in and what their returns are going to be, how much ownership they're getting in exchange for that, and make sure that all parties involved that have financial gain associated with this project are putting in capital sufficient for it to hurt if there's a project problem. Otherwise, what you typically will see is you have partner A, B, and C, and A and B have money in the game and C does not, and C is the manager of the project. But this project isn't partner C's top priority because they don't have any money on the line. If it doesn't work, so what? They usually will focus more on the projects that they have skin in the game on before they'll focus on projects where they don't have skin in the game. So that's super crucial. Skin in the game does not always apply, it does not always relate just to how much cash they put in for capital. Skin in the game can also be personal guarantees. Did they personally guarantee the loan so that if the loan doesn't work, they're liable? They're the ones that get sued for it. We talked about personal funds invested and then making sure that they have the reputation in the industry to know how to do it with regards to being able to manage your project correctly. Know how your partners are getting paid. Where are they making money on this deal? Let me give you some examples. A lot of times when you develop a project, the partners will get paid on a land acquisition fee. They'll get paid a developer fee. They'll get paid a part of builder profit if they're the contractor, or they'll break it out. So even if they're not the contractor, they get a chunk of builder profit. They'll usually get paid some management fees. I've seen multiple times where they'll have family members, nepotism. Family members get paid to do work on the project, but that family member's charging more than the industry standard for the quality of work that this person is doing. That's one way. Look for anything unusual in your cost breakdown. Try to figure out when you get a cost breakdown, especially if you're building the project or if you're remodeling it at all, look and figure out where the numbers are going and do any of these numbers seem outside of the norm for this industry. If one of them's high, find out why. Is there someone involved that's related to a partner that you're overpaying as another way to cushion your partner's pockets? This is super crucial. When I'm involved in projects, on construction projects especially, I'm pretty particular that the partners don't get paid till the end. Why? Because I need you to have skin in the game and I need you to have a reason to stick through the project to the end. If they're getting paid their developer fees right up front, they don't have as much of a reason to really stick through with it and work hard at it and make sure it works. If they get paid at the end and it's based on the performance of the project, not just because they bought a chunk of land at the beginning, or the developer fees, especially developer fees. A land acquisition fee, if it's only about 1%, that's pretty common. I wouldn't really balk at that one. But the developer fees, I make sure they get paid those at the very end, not at the beginning. And not when the project's done being built, when the project is done being sold, or when it's cash flow positive if it's a rental property. Once it hits cash flow positive, then we can start paying out developer fees. They shouldn't be getting paid before that because they're not done. The project is not done yet. And because if something goes downhill, we need that money to fix whatever's going downhill, whatever the project is for whatever reason. So yeah, look and see how your partners are getting paid and when and why. And then look for conflicts of interest that we talked about. Work being done by a relative, nepotism, things of that nature. Are they getting paid market wage? If it is a relative, which isn't always a bad thing, but make sure they're getting paid market wages for the work they're doing and that the work they're doing is necessary. And then is the work they're providing more value to the finished project than the cost that they're putting in there? So is it necessary? And then pay for performance. As they're doing it, you pay them when they're done, like we talked about. Keep the deal sponsors or the parties incentivized to perform quickly and to the best of their ability. Pay them all or most of their funds at the end of the project, not the beginning. And talk about in advance, if the project fails, how much will each of the partners have been paid by the time the project fails? So if you make them wait and make them get paid at the end, much more likely to have a positive outcome on the project. Is there a grab back provision to take funds from partners if the project isn't working before they take a loss to investors or to other partners that are involved? So if you're paying a management fee to one or two partners, is there a grab back provision in there to pull that back if there's a problem? Now, that is not super common in the industry, but the times I have seen it done, it worked wonders. Those projects usually work because the managers know that they're going to have to fork out the money if it doesn't. So consider holding back some or part of the money until it's done. The fifth part of the partnership evaluation is capacity. Do the partners have the capacity to manage this project to the end? I can't tell you how many times I've seen people say, hey, I want you to partner with us on this project. I've got a ton of experience in building storage units. I have this whole portfolio that I'm managing. Come partner with us. And when I dive in deep, I realize they are managing by themselves all of these current storage units. They don't have any bandwidth to actually manage another one or to build it from scratch and manage their construction project. This project is likely to be put on the back burner because they've got other things they have to be working on. If a person is maxed out like that, they need to learn to delegate before you partner with them. Otherwise, your project's going to constantly have delays because they don't have time to manage this particular project. So how many deals are they doing simultaneously? How actively are they involved in the management? What decisions are they making and which decisions are they delegating out? And do they have the financial capacity to delegate and hire out the work as needed? Because if they don't have the financial capacity to do it, or if the projects don't, then you know that they're running it all themselves. And that's not usually a good sign of a project. Find out if this project is their top priority or if it's going to be a back burner to them. If their pet project that they really love is a different project somewhere else, you're going to likely have delays on this project. It's likely not going to be done on time. So make sure that this project stays at or close to their top priority. Do they have the workload divided out sufficiently to keep the project moving forward as quickly as possible? A lot of times that just involves having good contractor and good subcontractors, depending on the work that's being done. Sometimes it's having good management on the project that's managing the project on a day-to-day basis. If your office manager is doing a terrible job, finding somebody else who can do a good job so that you don't have to be the office manager, but it's still getting done well. And then make sure the workload is divided out equally amongst the partners according to who has the most skill and capability to do it and who's best suited to do that job, and that the ownership is broken out accordingly so that they're not saying, hey, I brought this deal, I want to partner with you. And by the way, we're going to have you doing 3/4 of all the work, but we each get a third of the ownership. You want to make sure the workload's divided out evenly based on ownership amongst the general capitals or the general partners. We're going to have a question period in just a minute, guys. So please put all your questions in the chat. I am sure this is a wealth of information that I'm sure a lot of you have questions on. So let's definitely dive into it. I have a secret little bonus C here. Those are the 5 C's of partnering, but I'm going to add one, the 6th one. I'm going to call this the conditions. If you have an honest person you're partnering with and you've got a great deal and they've got the capacity to do the project, everything fits the box. The last thing you need to make sure is that the conditions on which you are partnering are favorable to you and that they make sense. They feel honest and fair. How do we know that? Your operating agreement. I can't tell you how many people I have seen that will decide the project and the people, and they'll jump into it and put their money in before they bother to figure out an operating agreement. Just know, guys, that this operating agreement is the law when it comes to your business. The conditions that are set forth in there are binding to you and all the parties that signed it. So read the operating agreement carefully and make sure you understand it. This document governs who gets the cash flow on the project and when. It governs who gets to claim the tax benefits of the project and when. It governs how do you make decisions on the project. If there's three partners, if it's me and Bob and Joe are both brothers, does the operating agreement say that all decisions are made by majority? Because if so, I no longer have a vote. Because Bob and Joe are brothers, they're most likely going to vote with each other no matter what's going on. So you want to make sure the operating agreement has you protected with your ability to make decisions on the project as well, and that the partners, the parties are all going to be working together on the project. Your operating agreement also determines how the business can and will be dissolved. Huge, guys. This is like your prenup agreement on a business, and you need to know it and know it well and protect yourself. Let me give you some examples of actual things I have seen, okay? Bob, Joe, and Fred partner on a business. Everything's great. They've got a 500 unit apartment building. They're happy. It's working really, really well until Bob gets a divorce. And Bob's ex-wife takes him to court and wants half of his ownership in the project. Well, the operating agreement wasn't written well enough to prevent that from happening. So now they're partnered, Bob, Fred, and Joe, and Sarah, who Sarah is extremely contentious. She's very hard to work with. She's very demanding, and she keeps threatening to sue the other partners. That's not a partnership you want to be a part of. No one agreed to partner with Sarah in the beginning, but the operating agreement was not written well enough to preclude that from happening. So now they have to partner with Sarah and deal with Sarah. What they ended up having to do was sell the project just to get away from Sarah. And they sold it at probably one of the worst times to sell just because they had to get away from Sarah. They could not deal with her. That happens more often than you would like to think. What about Bob, Fred, and Joe, and one of them dies? Does Joe's ownership go to his wife or his kids? Or are you now partnering with, the two people you chose to pick and Joe's wife and his 7 children? So now there's 8 additional parties to this this project that you didn't want to be a part of. And 3 of the kids are throwing a fit that they want it sold right now because they want their money. And 3 of them want to hang on to it. And 2 of them are screaming at you that you're not doing a good job managing the project, but they have no experience whatsoever. Do you see how important it is that your operating agreement identifies what happens in the event of death, what happens in the event of divorce? You want to make sure it irons out what happens if one of the partners wants to sell and one of them doesn't. Who gets to make that decision? Because you can't sell, some projects you can sell half and not all, but most projects it's an all or nothing thing. Either you all sell or you don't sell. What happens if one party wants to sell when it's not really financially advantageous to do it? You're going to take a big loss on it because they have a lawsuit going or for whatever reason. Iron out who determines when you sell the business and why and under what conditions. There are so many things in your operating agreement that are super, super important. And you got to know what that is, what you're agreeing to partner on before you end up in a situation. Because let me tell you a secret. A poor operating agreement is extremely expensive because it has to all be litigated in court to determine how the business is going to be operated and divided, or all of those conditions. All of it has to go through court. Attorney fees will very quickly eat up any, if not all, of the profits you have on a project. So your good operating agreement up front, you may spend, $5,000, $10,000 getting a good operating agreement, but it might save you hundreds of thousands of dollars in the end. So go into it knowing what you're doing. Don't just pull an operating agreement off the internet and go with it. Unless this is someone you're partnering with, like, okay, my spouse, I partner with Nate all the time. I have operating agreements we use, but where it's just the 2 of us, I already know how it's going to pan out. And I've already had an attorney go through my operating agreement to begin with to look for all those kind of things. So I feel like I'm already protected on that. That is really, really important. I actually saw one recently where both parties had signed it, and the party that was reaching out to me saying, "Hey, I have this house. I was flipping with somebody. This is a true story. I'm going to take names out. They're going to say Bob and Fred just because it's easy. Bob and Fred were flipping a house together, and partway through, they decided they couldn't get along. One of them was spreading lies and rumors about the other, and it just became super, super contentious. And Fred reached out to me and said, "Hey, what do I do?" He's like, "Let me send you all the numbers on the project." I said, "Don't even bother. Just send me the operating agreement." It's like, "Why do you want that?" I said, "Because that's what determines what you can and can't do." So Fred sent me a copy of the operating agreement. Fred didn't realize he had signed an operating agreement that gave Bob 100% of the cash flow of the project, 100% decision-making rights, and the ability to remove Fred from the project if he felt like Fred wasn't being honest with him. Okay, that was the worst operating agreement I've ever seen in like 21 years in real estate. I'm shocked Fred didn't even read it before he signed it. But nonetheless, in addition to that, there were all these handwritten things in the notes in the operating agreement. They'd cross out a line here and handwrite it without any initials. Guys, you have to both sign any changes or it's not valid. It won't hold up in court because you can't figure out whether Bob wrote it in or Fred wrote it in. And there's no way to prove that both Bob and Fred agreed to it either way. So it's not legally binding unless it's signed. If you have to make a change, both of you need to initial it so that you agree to it. I've seen a lot of people who get their operating agreements notarized. It's not necessarily a requirement, but it does protect you if you're partnering with Bob and Fred. If Bob and Fred say, "Well, I didn't sign this, that's not my signature." The notary is the stamp of the notary saw that you signed it, looked at your ID, and verified that you in fact sign it. It makes documents much more valid in court. It's not always necessary. It's super uncommon to have that done. But guess what? DocuSign will do the same thing. So DocuSign the operating agreement if needed, but get it signed, get it in writing, and make sure you know what you are agreeing to.
Thanks for listening to Real Estate to Freedom with Dr. Nate and Becky Lambert. If you enjoyed the show, please rate and review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. You can download their free ebooks and workshops by visiting realestatetoFreedom.com.